I read a great little comic book this week that I want to tell you about because it's one of these important situations in a comic book that doesn't come up too often. Most of the comic book stories that we get to see, that we get to read each week, are just stories. They're not life changing events, universe changing events, things that would even maybe a milestone moment captured on paper. So that's the question of this book that I read this week to share with you in particular. Because is it a milestone moment captured on paper, or is it just another in a long line of reboots and restarts and resets that the comic book industry does? And so when I was looking at the new history of the DCU and looking into what it's about and who wrote it and who's doing the art, that was the question that I had in the back of my mind. What am I looking at here? Am I looking at some attempt to truly reshape the DC universe, or is it just an explanation of the DC universe, given that there's about 90 years of history at this point? The new history of the DC universe, it's a 4-part series celebrating that sort of 90 years of history, explaining that sort of 90 years of history. It's written by Mark Waid, compiled by Mark Waid, that went out, and he and others went and did a ton of research to pull this all together and to create a sort of a timeline and a history of events, and that's what this 4-part series is. And they start right at the beginning, and there's all these wonderful different creators and artists for each different issue of the comic book. In this case, Todd Knock is the main artist on this, along with Jerry Ordway. In fact, Jerry Ordway been around for many years and very influential in the DC universe. In fact. And so it's a really neat thing. I'm not a big DC guy. I like Batman. There's not much else necessarily that I follow in the DC universe. That's not to say that I don't know it or like it. It's just that I don't. It's you have to pick and choose. You can't read it all. I found that out certainly doing this here as of late, knowing that it's that much harder to do this, to read these books and then go and do a review of them, and still keep doing reviews, going forward with doing reviews, and still being able to try to continue to read for enjoyment on the side of it. It's a really tough thing to do. So if you're getting to read any of them, if you're getting to read just Batman out of the DC universe, then you're that much further ahead than most people. It's a great big universe, and it's been around for 90 years, and there's a lot going on. When this book opens up, when the new history of the DC universe opens up, we see Barry Allen. He's just sort of sitting at a computer, and he's doing history. He's doing the history of the DCU. Barry is the second Flash, and he's one of the founding members of the Justice League. And now he is, because he's really the one person, the most traveled person throughout the multiverse. He's now the person who gets to chronicle it. He's the chronicler of time, and he really starts right at the beginning of the DC universe and its foundings, and the sort of what is it? The source. That's the pre anything, and then the hands that shape the source. I mean, so it really goes all the way back to the beginning of time as far as the DC universe goes, and they just go through the ages and show where despair comes from, or the Spectre and that connection, and the demon, and it just goes on and on. But it's a nice thick book because there's a storytelling portion of the book. The first half of the book is the storytelling portion of it, and it's really just sort of a sentence or two about a time period as you jump forward in time to these next massive events, whatever it happens to be. Angels falling from Merlin magically changing somebody. There's all these different stories, and some of them are new. Like the thing about the source and the hands and all that. That's really described recently. That's sort of back to 2018, and that's what's cool about the second half of the book. It's the timeline. And so it goes through and it actually shows you, well, if you want to know about the source and the hands, the best place to start, the information that Mark and everybody is working from for this new history is in such and such an issue from I think it was like Justice League number 22 or something like that from 2018 that in particular told that story. But that's wonderful how that works, because you can go through and you can read about these different events, or you read about Jonah Hex. There's mention of Jonah Hex and all the different characters throughout the Wild West, Johnny Thunder and people like that, all throughout the Wild West, and through the different eras. And then you move forward to sort of the era of World War II, and that's just kind of the history of Earth. And there's also the cosmic stuff going on out and about and around. You have the Manhunters, the robot Manhunters, and then of course they're replaced by the Green Lanterns, and the whole history is there. He goes all the way back. Oh, just one real quick note. It's an interesting thing. So you open up on Barry talking about these things, and he's seated at a desk in it looks almost like a dorm room almost, but it's just a man cave, somebody's office, Barry's office, and he's talking about how old he is, but he doesn't look old. He talks about how he's retired. I guess that's more than the age thing. He's just talking about how he's retired and how he's become a chronicler of it, and how he's traveled throughout the multiverses and seen all these things. But it's not just that. As he's sitting there, you see around him in a shadow box on the wall, up on the wall, is Superman's cape. And I think the Penguin's hat was sitting there. The Penguin's top hat was sitting there in one, or maybe it was the Mad Hatter's top hat. I don't know. There was a top hat that could have been used. It was purple, probably Penguin. Could be Joker. I didn't know. Joker didn't wear a top hat. The Penguin wore a top hat. But there was other things like Loki's staff, which if you know Loki's staff, you know exactly what that looks like, and it's there. It's just there, hanging out in Barry's office, and there's all sorts of other artifacts, masks, and power rings, and all scattered about his office. So that's an interesting thing. I don't know if they'll ever tell us what that's about. Is it just his collectibles? Is it like the collectibles that are around me at any given time? Oh yeah, I have lots of Green Lantern rings running around. I have Red Lantern rings, I have Green Lantern rings, I have Black Lantern rings, I have Yellow Lantern rings. Literally, I'm not even joking about this. I have them all over the place, but they're not real. They're not the actual Green Lantern rings. They're not the ones that anybody would be able to do anything with. You should form a great big fist and punch somebody. I don't know. I guess we'll get to find out. It just was a neat thing to see him sitting there and amongst all that stuff. Well, what does that mean? Are all these people dead? Is he that much further in the future? Have all these superheroes passed, and these are just relics of the past now? Do we not need superheroes anymore if things changed? Is there even a universe outside of the box that you see Barry sitting in? We don't know the answer to any of these questions. But he does take you through the creation, all the way up through to, and just past the creation of the JSA and into basically the launch of the Golden Age and Superman. The sort of the last scene of the book, no spoilers, is the pram being launched from Krypton before Krypton blows up, and then so that'll lead into the next issue, and I guess they'll pick up. There's so much going on with DC right now, because they have the absolute DC thing going on, and the all-in DC thing going on, and these are simultaneous universes. One is the normal universe for DC that you recognize. It's built on the light of Superman and the history of Superman. And then there's the Dark Side universe, and they really haven't explained exactly how that's going to go. They have the characters they've introduced, and that's what the absolute characters are, and the absolute titles are doing great. And I've read a few of them, and they're really good right now. And so they're creating a wonderful universe outside or parallel to the regular normal DC universe, and doing things like this new history of the DCU to just kind of clean it up and catch people up, bring everybody up to, because again, excuse me, someone like me, I read a ton of comic books, but not necessarily all of them by any means, and certainly not within just one publisher. So to get the whole story of the DCU, you don't necessarily need to read, at least not now anyway, you don't necessarily need to read it all. You wouldn't want to really necessarily either, because you wouldn't find, some of it would entertain you, some of the characters you would like, some of them you wouldn't, some of the storylines you would find interesting, some of them you wouldn't. It's just the way it would be. So this is just a great little way for you to understand maybe some of the things that shape some of the characters you love inside the DC universe. It's the new history of the DC universe. If you can't find one at your local comic shop, hit me up at amazingfantasies.com, or better yet, stop in the store and see one of I know we got quite a few of the covers. I went with the Art Germ cover. I had to have that one because it was a classic Wonder Woman picture. And it was a foil, and I'm a sucker for a foil. It's in your stores right now, in your local comic shop right now. Come see us here in Topeka, Kansas at Amazing Fantasies.